It was so nice to sit down and chat with Gunnery Sergeant Amy McCabe, Principal Trumpet with the President's Own United States Marine Band. In September of 2022, Amy became the first female principal trumpeter of the Marine Band in its 225-year history that dates back to July of 1798. The President's Own United States Marine Band is America's oldest continuously active professional musical organization. In my conversation with Amy, she talks about what all of this means to her and sends encouraging words to young women and everyone pursuing a professional music career. She also talks about some of her observations from the other side of the audition screen and some of the more memorable moments of her almost 17 years with the Marine Band. In the description below, I have chapters so that you can easily jump around and refer to the different topics that we discuss. Also, if you have questions for Amy, don't hesitate to reach out in the comments below. I know you're going to enjoy hearing from Amy and all of her wonderful insights. Here's my conversation with Amy McCabe. All right, welcome everybody. So great to have Amy McCabe, Gunnery Sergeant Amy McCabe, Principal Trumpet of the Marine Band with us today, the President's Own Marine Band. Amy, so glad you joined us. Really appreciate it.
Hey, I'm so glad to be here. Thanks, Chris.
Awesome. Well, in September 2022, we're just going to get right into it. In September 2022, you officially became the first female principal trumpet of the Marine Band. Can you talk a little bit about, what that means to you?
Yeah, I guess the impact of it didn't really sink in until later. It was mostly just, we went through kind of a 3-year trial period trying to figure out who was going to be the next person. And so I feel really grateful because our trumpet section is so awesome that it happened. And looking back now on my own musical heroes and inspiration, someone like Susan Slaughter was really important to me. And just to, I was able to hear her live a couple of times and have been able to play with her a few times since then. But having that influence really affected me, knowing that I could maybe someday be principal of an orchestra or, principal of the band, I suppose. And so now I understand that has kind of been put on myself as other young women are learning and trying to make their way in the musical world. So I am trying to, be graceful about that and do the best that I can with this big job. So.
Awesome. Yeah, just unbelievable. 225-year history, and it's taken it till now for that to finally happen. And there's been other women in the Marine Band. You want to speak to that?
Yeah, sure. So the very first female woman trumpet player was Nancy Taylor, and I believe she got in like the early 90s. Not sure if you overlapped with her at the part of your career. So she was the first one and, paved a lot of roads. And then we had Michelle Rockers, who went on to become one of our conductors. And Susan Ryder is also currently in the section with me now. And also Jennifer Murata, who you probably know out at USC along with Tom Hooten. So those women have also paved the way here. I'm the, newest of that crew of people, but just, again, seeing people in the band, seeing people play just wonderfully and be wonderful examples has been really impactful for me.
Fantastic. I want to switch gears just a little bit, and hopefully we'll come back to some more of that. But when someone auditions for the Marine Band, what are some things that you've observed in those auditions? Maybe your perspective on what you hear and sort of what separates those who ultimately end up winning the position.
Yeah, that the first round is always the most telling. We definitely are looking for a great sound. I'll probably sound like a broken record, what every professional musical organization is looking for, you want a great sound. Also, you just kind of want to hear what their general command of the instrument is. I think our audition has our very first excerpts in that first round do tell a lot about a player, going from, really some sort of Charlier etude into Ives Variation on America into the Hindemith. You're going to hear a wide expanse of that person's capabilities in that first round. So listening for great sound, which of course is great pitch, time, sound, also including like how much tension do they have in their sound or how relaxed they are. All these things kind of are things we're listening for, and that is, particularly that first round. Generally, it ends up going 3 or 4 rounds, and By the end of the day, you're really trying to hear who is, you know, who's got the endurance to last through all of this, because sometimes our job is really become an endurance challenge for a lot of things. Also, just the fine musicianship. We want to hear great musicianship throughout too. So don't be afraid to take musical chances. We just don't want everyone to sound like they're in a box. Yeah, and there was usually a duet round as well, which kind of helps see like how they might blend in the section. Not saying that you have to have a cookie cutter sound, or like every trumpet player in the Marine Band has the same sound. In fact, everybody sounds really different, and there's a lot of individuality within every player, which is really cool. But when we come together and play as a section, I think we've all learned to adjust to a very cohesive sound. So, yeah, that's kind of the package deal there.
No, that's great. That's great info. So that's interesting. So in the finals, there's not like a section playing part component to the band. It's just a duet sort of situation?
Duets, yeah. Hmm.
Wow, that's cool. So is that usually with the principal player yourself, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's generally it's been with me the last couple of times, and then or Matt Harding, he's the considered the solo cornet of the band, but they've kind of rebranded us to be co-principal trumpets. So just because we're playing more trumpet than cornet now these days with all the new rep out there. So
Gotcha. Yeah, that's interesting that what you said about, no one trumpet player sounds the same, and as tight of a section as the Marine Band trumpet section is. That's a really cool point. And I like the fact that you'd mentioned that, you know, be soloistic, be yourself, be musical. It's not, it's not music in a box. It's what everybody else in major symphony orchestras are looking for and everywhere else. And I think that's hard as a student or somebody who's on the audition circuit to sort of understand that, hey, you can take chances, musical risks. And I think those are the winners of these auditions.
for sure, yeah, I've heard rumors of other military bands. I won't name names or anything, but turning the metronome on right before you play a march or something, and it's got to be exactly this tempo. And we're concerned more about style and approach, because all that other things can come later. So
Right. Fantastic. We just did a horn audition for the Pittsburgh Opera, and it was 2 days of auditions. And, a number of candidates played warm-up notes, and, it's a French horn, and you want to figure out where you are. But I found that interesting because I've never really done that. What's your feeling on that when a candidate comes in and plays a note?
I will tell you, I think this is great information, and hopefully the student world will hear this, but we sometimes giggle at the warm-up notes. Coming from Barbara and Charlie studio, it was absolutely no warm-up notes. And if you are going to do that, please plan out exactly what you're going to play, because that is your first impression is whatever that is. So we'll just, you know, you just have to know what you're going to get into if you're going to be playing some warm-up notes. And I think that your first excerpt can be, your first three notes of the excerpt is a warm-up as well. So I think it's better to just execute right from the very first one. But
Yeah, and coaching students up on this, typically your very first excerpt, and I know in the Marine Band, sort of the opening round, you sort of know what the order is, right?
yeah,
It's the same sort of order. So no need. And, typically the first excerpt is one that, you can sort of, get a feeling for the room on that particular excerpt, usually a standard excerpt and that sort of thing. So I sort of advocate with my students like Charlie and Barbara do with that whole thing, And if you are going to play a note, you're on the clock immediately, right? I mean, it's not like, you can't help but listen to that. And if it's, disorganized and it's not good, it's an immediate turnoff. And in fact, it takes a while for a really great player who does that to sort of gain better standing, in my opinion. Does that kind of jive with your thoughts on that?
yeah, and if you are going to do that, just treat it as an excerpt as well. Like, know that you're going to play your slurred F major scale up and down, and that's excerpt number one for you. But I would say I would maybe 80-90% of the candidates that we have don't do that. So
Okay. Yeah. Very good. Very good. Well, I want to go back a little bit here and Maybe if you could speak to your musical upbringing and what ultimately led you to the Marine Band.
Yeah, so as a young girl, I took piano lessons, and didn't really study trumpet formally. I had lessons with band directors here and there, but just played in all the ensembles, the marching band, jazz band, concert band, all that sort of stuff. And didn't really get interested in music as performance really until later in my undergraduate career. I went to Illinois Wesleyan University, and they have a really great school of music, and some performance track, but mostly music education. And my older sister there, who also plays trumpet, was a music education major there. And I just wanted to be totally different from her. And I went elementary education. So I was just playing in the ensembles for fun, and was studying elementary education, K through 6 general ed. And in between my junior and senior year, I went and auditioned for the Disney Collegiate Band. And at that point, I was like, and I've got in, which was surprising to me. I've, kind of threw together a little list, and I'd loved going to Disney World as a kid. So I'm like, this must be a great job. And when I spent a summer doing that, I was like, holy cow, I didn't know performance as a living could be like this. This is so much fun. And from there, then I was like, how do I keep doing this? And so then my trumpet teacher at the time, when I started taking lessons, was like, okay, if you want to get serious about this, here are major orchestral excerpts. Here's what the Chicago Civic Orchestra list looks like. Start practicing the Haydn and the Hummel, just kind of, I had a lot of catch up to do. So that's kind of when I started really getting serious about the trumpet. Yeah, then that was the end of my undergrad. And then through the Disney Collegiate Band, I was encouraged to audition for this show called Blast. People probably don't know about it anymore, but it was on Broadway for a little bit and kind of came out of this Canadian Brass Star of Indiana Brass Theater history. And those a marching band DCI on stage with lights and costumes and kind of a through storyline. And so I got into that and performed with that ensemble for about 3 years. And during that time period was also when I really kind of got into the trumpet and music and the technical aspects of everything. I was touring with a lot of people that are still working now. Adam Rappa is probably a name you would know. But there was just a bunch of us that were geeks and we wanted to get better. And so just playing together ad nauseum on top of doing the show and kind of getting some professional experience was really advantageous for me at that point. And while I was in the show, I started taking grad school auditions and auditioned around at a handful of schools and got into Northwestern. And so that's kind of where I finished up and learned a lot while I was there too. So that's sort of my informal path to music. And it probably doesn't look similar to a lot of people's, but I just kind of kept doing the next thing that was interesting and tried to learn and catch up as much as I could throughout the years. So.
No, it's really cool. I had a similar upbringing. I was going to be a band director. I majored in music education in college. The thought of playing my trumpet for a living never really crossed my mind, at that point. And I think some of us are at different points of maturity when it comes to, if you really want to pursue this, what the skills that you need to have. And I just didn't think it was a possible thing for me. And so I was kind of a late bloomer as far as that goes when in terms of performing for a living. And so, but I never taught music, but I loved student teaching, and I could have done that gig and would have been really, really happy. It just wasn't in the cards. And I'm thankful for how it turned out. So that's kind of neat that you have sort of a similar musical upbringing.
Yeah, yeah. And also, I think it's encouraging for other people to know that it doesn't have to look like going to Juilliard pre-college as a high school student and being the Chicago Youth Symphony Orchestra. Like, it doesn't have to look like that. You can navigate the world in different ways. So,
No, that's a great point. Awesome. So, next question. So, what kind of projects are you working on now, both in and out of the Marine Band? Can you speak to that?
yeah, sure. Marine Band is always on. We have so much going on. Right now, we've just finished up our winter, and I guess they call it the spring concert season, which runs January through April. And there we do, full concert band concerts in a great hall or multiple great halls around the area, where we're playing a lot of great rep in the past few years. I think this was also compounded by the pandemic, but we've had a lot of new commissions come through the Marine Band. So we've been putting a lot of awesome new concert band music out into the world. Hopefully that'll trickle down to the collegiate ensembles as well. So that's what we've just kind of finished up. And you know that also our primary mission is to provide music for the president and the commandant of the Marine Corps. So that keeps us on our toes. We're over there in the form of a, medium-sized concert band on the lawn in any given moment, really, or a brass quintet on the lawn providing honors and music before and after different events. We have a string ensemble that's over there all the time. So we're just kind of on our toes waiting to see what the next event could be in terms of that work. We're also heading into our Friday night parade season, which is super popular. I think on TripAdvisor, it's one of the most popular things to do in DC in the summertime. And that's a really cool event. I think the most similar experience would be a military tattoo, where it's all of the ceremonial units presenting music. We have the silent drill team. The drum and bugle corps does a portion of this. And you see our full battalions doing their stuff. So Friday night parades are just about to start. And I think the most exciting thing that's coming up is we have, this is our 225th anniversary year of the band. And in honor of that, we have a concert at the Kennedy Center with John Williams conducting. And so it's going to be an all John Williams program, and he's going to conduct a portion of that. So everyone's super stoked about that. That's in July. So that's what's going on in Marine Band world.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. Marine Band world. So are there a few gigs that you can think of that just really stick out over the course of your career that you want to talk about?
Yes, sure.
I'm kind of putting you on the spot a little bit, but
yeah, no, it's great. I remember I was playing in the orchestra. We play on the state floor, and this was for, I don't remember what event it was for, but Arturo Sandoval was in the audience, and Herb Alpert, which was very random that we had two trumpet players at the White House being honored. I think I'm sorry, I can't remember what the event was for, but it was an orchestra, and I got to play the solo from Lincoln, which is, really beautiful. And so that was pretty cool. That was like the trumpet geek in me was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm playing for these musical heroes of mine. Also playing taps at midnight at the Vietnam War Memorial was really impactful. I think there was maybe one or two people that even happened by, but it kind of reminded me that, we can still honor people even if no one's watching. And we play taps all the time. I'm sure you've played taps, a handful of times, but anytime that happens, I think this is something that's just kind of sunk in on the latter half of my career now. But when we're at funerals and we play taps, that oftentimes is the moment of catharsis for the family. It's this very familiar tune, even if the band's already played some hymns and whatnot. When taps happens, a lot of times that's the impact of grief hits. And I think it's healing. I think it's a time for families to really understand, their family members' service to the country in whatever capacity that was. And I'm honored to be able to provide that. At first, taps was like oh gosh, don't chip a note of, these are scary 4 notes, whatever. And now it's music for healing. So anytime I play taps, I think is a memorable moment for me in the Marine Band.
Yeah, such a hauntingly beautiful melody, and yeah, it's quite the honor to be able to do that at Arlington National Cemetery. And I have a funny story about that. I was on a funeral. It was a standard honors funeral. We called it in the Air Force, where it's just one bugler. There's no band on scene, and a lot of times I would get changed at Fort Myers, right next to Arlington Cemetery. Well, I didn't have all my uniform. In other words, I was missing my pants, believe that or not. So, and I still feel terrible about this to the day, but I went around the corner in my car and I had everything on, and I pointed my bell out of the car and sounded taps, and nobody knew because I was off in the distance, and I just drove right off and called it a gig. But yeah, when you have to perform at Arlington Cemetery, you need all facets of your uniform, I would say. But somehow I dodged a bullet on that one. But yeah, no, it is such an honor to do that, and yeah, to see the emotion in the family is life changing, and the fact that you played a part in that is a really cool feeling. And so yeah, that's great stuff. um yeah, it's like you guys are on the front row of history really in a lot of ways with all the White House support stuff that you guys do. Is there a particular gig for the president, whoever that might be at the time, that sticks out to you?
Yeah, I mean, our band, I feel like the band lore, there's been so many fantastic moments. President Obama was very warm with the band, and he would always come over and say hello, usually before an event would happen. And so that was always really cool. He was a big fan of the jazz combo, and would love anytime they play Miles Davis or Thelonious Monk. Um, Most recently, I did the state dinner for France, and that's just kind of a celebrity star-studded event, and it's a lot of really great people watching. Just to know that you're providing music and kind of connecting countries and cultures. So events like that are always really fun too.
That's great. Yeah, I played one of my last gigs when I was in the band was Obama's inauguration, and that was crazy. I mean, it was I've never seen so many people. It was just an unbelievable event. I'll never forget that. And I've heard that about Obama, that he was always very friendly to the musicians, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, Amy. So for women aspiring to be professional musicians, you kind of spoke to this just a little bit ago, but see if you want to expand on this a little bit. What advice would you offer um, a woman who's up and coming as a professional musician?
I would say don't be scared to go play for people. I would tell this to anybody really, but sometimes I think it in the past I have noticed some of the women students being a little bit more apprehensive about reaching out to people and like really digging in and playing for someone. And I just didn't have that fear, and it has really helped me just to connect with people and to learn different styles and opinions of how all of the standard music is played. So I would say, kind of get out of your shell and be okay to, be the only female on some of these gigs, or maybe the only female that's reaching out and playing for people. Yeah. And to, oftentimes you're the only person in the back row if I'm playing with an orchestra or something on the outside on my free time. That's okay too. Connect with the women that and that's fine. And it's not, I don't think it's a weird thing anymore. I feel like at least my male coworkers and everyone has they've been very welcoming and supportive of everything that I've done. And so just know that you're walking into, I think, a new generation of people that are supportive. And if you look for that, you'll find it for sure.
All right, excellent advice. Yeah, this is great. So, any I don't know, words of wisdom or final thoughts or things that you'd like to share and put out there about your career and whatever direction you would like to take it?
Yeah, a lot of I just think that, if you are a motivated person and you have an idea of what you want to do with life, if you can, listen and again, connect with multiple people, be open to advice and instruction, I think that's a really big ticket to getting a job and honing your skills in such a way that you will become hireable. If you're like really stuck in your ways and you're like, this is how I play, or this is how my teacher 10 years ago told me how to play it, and then you keep taking auditions and you don't advance, like you kind of need to be a little bit more malleable in that way to, figure out what's, the X factor of maybe why you're not advancing. So just always stay open. And I love, one of Barbara and Charlie's main missions in life was to kind of get rid of the ego in the professional trumpet world, which has, we have this weird reputation of having egos. And I think they have, done a great job in instilling those virtues in students. And it really, I think not having having a healthy ego is important, but not, you know, I don't know, talking trash about other players and all these different things that maybe trumpet players are egotistical, all that sort of stuff. I don't think it has a place in music anymore in professional ensembles. I think the higher you get, you see less of that oftentimes. And so I don't think it's a attribute that needs to happen, especially in the collegiate level and stuff. So just be open to your coworkers. Know that you can learn something from everyone, whether it's someone in your studio, like, how do you articulate like that? Or like, how did you just play a double B when it was 40 degrees outside? We do that in the Marine Band all the time. We're constantly relying on each other, getting together to play duets. Hey, pulling someone in a room. Can you listen to me? Like, can you listen? I'm trying two horns out. Like, which one do you like? So it's really this nice collegial support system, I think, that we all need just to kind of get through the days here. So.
No, that's great advice. Yeah, really, really great advice. You have to be flexible, for one, and especially like the advice where, you can learn from everyone. I think so many times, somebody sitting next to you does something better than you do, and just trying to figure out how to do that, and that's what we're all trying to do, and we all have different strengths and weaknesses, and most of us need encouragement along the way, and our colleagues need encouragement, our students need encouragement, we need encouragement. And I just think that keeping that nice open mind, and being willing to try and experiment, I think is really key to being successful. So that's really, really great stuff. Well, Amy, anything else?
Oh gosh, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, this has been absolutely fantastic, and so glad that you were able to take some time out to visit today. And I know that many, many people are going to really get a lot out of this, and I'll stick it on the air here in a few days, and I'm excited to see what happens. And if you would, I'm going to put it on the YouTube channel. I think people probably have questions, so every now and then just refer back to that. That'd be awesome, because if you do have questions, write them out in the comments below, and I know Amy would love to get back to you. Amy, thanks so much. Really, really appreciate your time.
Yeah, sure, Chris. Thanks so much for all of the good work you're doing. I watched your Whiff Rud podcast the other day, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so great. I learned so much. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Amy. Really appreciate it.